I'm very delighted to be here with you on today. I want to thank the conference organizers for having me, but most importantly, spending time on the agenda to talk about how we can transform diversity, equity, and inclusion inside of our organizations and our work environments. When we think of our mission here at United Health Group, one of the most important and key words in our value statement is everyone. We're really talking about how we help make the healthcare system work for everyone. And we believe everyone includes all people, all demographics from all walks of life. When we can do this, we will help people live longer, more healthier, and more meaningful lives. So when we talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, what are we really meaning? What are the core concepts relative to these words that hold a lot of power inside of an organization? When we use the word diversity, primarily what we're talking about is our rich mix of differences. It's about things that we call our primary dimensions of diversity, such as our age, gender, race, abilities, sexual orientation, all of those things about ourselves that we can't change, but also things about ourselves that we can, relative to our perspectives, where we grew up, where we lived in the geography of the world, what school we went to, our language. All of that is encompassing our unique differences in making us who we are. Equity. Equity is about driving fairness. It's about ensuring that everyone gets what they need. When we think about inclusion, it's about ensuring that the experience that individuals have inside of a workplace or within a community, it's one in which they feel they belong, but that they also experience feeling welcomed, valued, respected, and heard. When all three things work in concert, we really have an opportunity to impact a work environment, but most importantly, we have a chance of improving our healthcare outcomes for all. So what's the difference between equality and equity? If we think of the D&I space, just over time, many organizations, when we started this work, we were focusing on equality, making sure that everything that we did for every demographic, it was equal, that they got the same resources, the same approach, the same tools, the same education and awareness. And what we learned, if you'll look at this demographic, and I think it does a great job of showing it here, that giving everybody the same thing may not work. It may not be relevant to meet their unique needs or to help them thrive or advance. But equity is a different concept, and a concept that we've learned over time. It gives us the permission, but also the deep insight to understand the different needs of our populations and our demographics to ensure we're giving them what they need based on their situation, and making sure that the tools, the education, the resources that we offer to them, that it's relevant and applicable in meeting their needs. And I think this is really core as we think about the healthcare system, how we educate our patients, and how we think about advancing healthcare outcomes. We need to double click more on the equity versus the equality. So why is this important to our business? You know, data overwhelmingly shows and suggests that when we have a rich mix of talent from all walks of life inside of an organization, and this talent is in a workplace environment that allows psychological safety, that allows authenticity, that allows people to ask questions, to challenge ideas, to share their ideas. We have the benefit of innovation. We have the benefit of engaging talent in a way that performance exponentially improves. People are more engaged. They want to come to work. They are excited about sharing their ideas and opinions. And if you think of innovation, innovation only takes place in an environment in which people can thrive and are psychologically safe. So we're no longer talking about diversity and inclusion as a noble thing to do, a right thing to do, or an ethical thing to do. It is a business imperative if we want to thrive. But most importantly, as we think of our patients who we are honored to serve, we can't do this work and improve healthcare if we aren't addressing diversity, equity, and inclusion as a way to do business. I'm often asked, as we think of this space, what is kind of that one thing we need to do to make vast improvements around DE&I? Many leaders have asked, Joy, if we could just do this one thing, would we make progress in this space? And I'll give you an easy answer. There is no one thing. There is no magic wand to making improvements in diversity, equity, inclusion. But instead, I'd like to submit an approach that we've seen work over time and that it yields really good results when we have a three-pronged approach to this work. And it's addressing our leadership, our systems, but also our culture. One of the first places you should start in this work is with leadership. Leadership needs to understand at the day-to-day practical levels what their role, accountability, but also their responsibility is in advancing DEI. You've often heard people say, where what isn't measured doesn't get done. We need to hold leaders accountable and make addressing and advancing this space as part of their performance metric as we do anything else. This has to be core to what makes a leader great inside of your organization. But we also need to equip our leaders, make sure that they're skilled and have the appropriate training and cultural competency to be able to understand the different needs and the unique aspects that make people feel welcomed at the demographic level. As it relates to culture, there's an inspired culture that we often get to read about on websites or in organization value statements. But then there's the culture, there are the experience that people have every day and what it feels like for them, their day-to-day practices that creates an organizational culture that are either make a person feel that they are merely surviving or that they have the ability to thrive. So we got to understand what an organization culture is. Is there safety for people to share, to speak up, to offer different opinions? And lastly, we have to look at our systems. Look at our talent management life cycle, all the way from recruiting to who we promote, how we assess advancement inside the company, what does our performance metric and assessments look like, all the way to how we reward and pay talent. And when you look at this total life cycle, where does bias show up? And how can we systematically disrupt it and put intentional things in our structures and in our systems so that bias does not limit the access to some demographics and populations to be able to advance through our talent management life cycle? We believe that when we look at all three of these areas and when we approach all three in tandem, holding our leaders accountable when there are bad behaviors, making sure that our culture is one that we're proud of and that people can do their best work, and that our systems ensure and are intentional in addressing fairness, we believe that's that kind of synergistic spot in which we can optimize and yield really good outcomes and results in this space. Here at UHG, we have a 3-pillar framework of how we address or think about this work. And I hope what you'll see here is a very holistic approach, that DEI is not tucked away in one office or the responsibility of one individual. It takes an entire ecosystem in so many areas for us to make healthcare outcomes as it relates to this space. Our 3-pronged approach is people, workplace, and marketplace. As we think of all of the work that lies under our people's pillar, we're looking to reflect the communities and the labor pool among the individuals in which we serve. We want our workplace to be an inclusive environment, one in which people can do and deliver their best work, one in which they feel like they can belong and thrive. And as it relates to our marketplace, we want to be a leader in this space, integrating DEI into just the fabric of how we do our business so that we could grow our business and attract the best talent. And we believe the best talent is inclusive of all talent. What you'll see here at the bottom of this slide and what's foundational to this work is culture. I'm sure we've all heard that culture eats strategy. You maybe heard that before. But we could have the best plans, but if we aren't addressing culture, which is foundational, we will not yield transformational progress and outcomes in this space. The areas that are highlighted in light blue really denote those areas in which either there is an increased need or commitment in this space, or there are external pressures happening that's forcing us to think about this work in a different way. This space is continuing to evolve and grow as our societal norms, needs, and practices are forcing us to think about this work differently. We know that the pandemic, COVID-19, has changed the workplace, and there are nuances about this for many that's forcing us to think about how we now connect differently, given that many roles now are work from home. How do we help people to feel included in a virtual environment? So this work and this will continue to evolve as humanity evolves. So what are some of the operating principles or kind of those best practices when you do this work? One of the things I'd like to submit to you, diversity, equity, inclusion is not just about the intellectual conversation or the kind of scientific dialogue. It's really, in many regards, an art. It's more about the heart and how we do business. It's not always what we do, but it's how we approach this work that we found can exponentially help us endure and keep our gains over time. What I would submit, if you're thinking about addressing DE&I inside your practices and inside your organizations, go slow to go fast. Make sure you're spending time on the foundation. And when I say foundation, starting with leadership, making sure that we are spending and investing in education, in training, to help create a common language inside your workplace and your organization of what is your definition of diversity, equity, and inclusion? What are you committing to make progress in? How does this help your business? How does this help the patients that you serve? Get real clear on those things and make sure that majority of your leadership has exposure, awareness, and understanding, but more importantly, they know what they're accountable for. We talked a little bit about the 3-pronged approach of leadership, system, and culture. But in this regard, in many settings, I will tell you in many settings, as you think of advancing inclusion, there's a lot of skepticism on a lot of sides around what does this really mean? Some may view this as, if we do this, we're taking this away from this group. Some may not understand how this can impact our business or how this makes everyone have a chance to thrive, win, and not just survive inside of a company. So spend the hard work and the time ensuring that we are speaking about this work in a way in which we are creating trust. People trust our intent. They know what we're trying to advance. They understand how they can help. And to gain trust from your organizations, you're going to have to deliver a few quick wins, and the quick wins that matter to your team members. But that's going to require that you talk to your team members and you understand from them what's working, and from their vantage points, what we could do better in. It's going to be core that you have these conversations. We have to have an intolerance for a lack of progress. This is kind of my favorite on the slide. If we can solve some of life's most horrible diseases, and we can find medicines that can help people live longer and healthier lives, I am just convinced that we can definitely figure out how to advance diverse demographics, how to create workplaces that are more inclusive and provide more fairness in our systems. So let's all have an intolerance for a lack of progress in some of these healthcare issues that we have struggled with for decades. We can do better if we hold ourselves accountable. And let's lead with transparency. Let's be honest with ourselves about our wins, but we also have to own the areas that we consider losses and core challenges and opportunities for improvement. So how do we transform diversity and equity and inclusion in a workplace environment? And some of the best solutions and ideas, they fail when we don't do a few things well. Number one, I'm often asked or brought into a conversation when people are really trying to help create a solution or an intervention for a particular demographic. And often they'll come with an idea and wanting to know, Joy, or ask my team members, what do you think? And the first question that I ask them, have you asked the demographic that you're trying to help? What's working, what's not working, and if this solution will work? And I will tell you 90% of the time, the answer is no. This is the simplest solution and the first place we should start. If there is an area, whether it's Black women and breast cancer, whether it's Latinx and diabetes, whatever that particular area is where you want to make improvement, ask the demographic. And if possible, within your workforce, if you have that representation, give them a seat at the table to help you in creating a solution. I promise you, it would be the easiest, best gift you can give to creating improvement in that area. Learning more about the experience of different individuals is core. It is just core. It's an evolution. It's something we all should be working in this space. There is no way that we're going to know everything about every person or every demographic. But taking the additional time, whether it's 1 or 2 minutes, to get at the experience level with a team member and or a patient, I promise you, it would help you better inform you on creating the insights to offer interventions and solutions that just might save someone's life. Last, but certainly not least, on this slide, I'd like to point out, we have to disrupt bias in the behaviors of our employees and in our leaders. This is core. The shadow of leadership is one of the most important things in creating the organizational culture. And sometimes disrupting bias just might be making a person aware of either saying something or not saying something, or moving too quick and not allowing a person to finish their story or their statement. how that may have impacted an individual in a way in which they felt disrespected or unheard. So, where we can offer advice and opportunities for improvement in any of these areas, we are better positioned to truly transform our workplace cultures and improve in this space. So, when you think about advancing talent, I know in many organizations all across the globe, this is still a big challenge. When we look at the highest levels of leadership, and even in the healthcare system, there is just a rich opportunity for more diversity, um, more diverse representation at the highest levels, or even in some of our clinical areas. Um, we need to see more women, and we need to see more people of color, in many other demographics as well. How can we help accelerate talent? Number one, performance is key. But what we've seen over time, that when we assess talent, we often think that we're focusing on performance, but in actuality, only 50% of it is really performance. 25% is on who we know, who we have access to, who we believe have had the experiences that would help these individuals be successful in this role. And in many times we see there are additional barriers and lack of access to these opportunities for women and for some of our racial demographics. And one that's a really big one is around relationship capital. It's who you're friends with, who's in your inner circle, who's in your network. I promise you, I've sat in so many talent reviews, and I've often heard things like, oh my God, this individual is amazing. They're awesome. They're wonderful. I really like them. I think they would be great. And when you peel back and ask questions, a lot of it is because the personal relationship and the candor and the likeness that this person have with this other individual, and not really about their performance. Diverse talent often has little to no access to these deep networks and relationships that traditionally have really helped over anchor to men. So when we think about advancing talent, make sure that not only are we offering performance opportunities, but that we're giving visibility opportunities, but also networking and relationship capital to all of our demographics so that we can better know who our full range of talent is inside of a company. And I'll close with this last slide. Just a few things to consider. If you want to make progress in this space, lead with transparency. Be open about what's going well, but also be open and honest about some of the things that are still challenges for us, for our environments, and for our organization. This will build so much trust and credibility with your team members and the patients that you serve. Understanding their journey at the experience level is so key. And sometimes it's just by asking a powerful question that you can learn so much. And even asking about a person's experience is a signal of respect and that you care. Think about what are those one or two things that are some quick wins and changes that you need to make in your workplace environment that you believe would matter in making healthcare outcomes and improvements for people who are depending upon us. Hold yourselves accountable, whether it's in your performance conversation or establishing some metrics or measures to be able to say, are we making progress in this area? And make these metrics visible to the people who can help make improvements inside your workplace. And be intentional and be thoughtful in offering development opportunities and shadow opportunities for underrepresented individuals inside of your company, in your practices, and in your organizations. This is a journey we all are on. And ultimately, we're talking about humanity. And to be in the healthcare space, I know it's because you care. You care about people. You care about the well-being of others. Now it's time for us to ensure that the well-being of our people who work inside of our company is one in which they get to see others that look like them at all levels. They get to feel included and connected and valued, and that the systems, the formal and informal practices, is working for everyone. Thank you for having me, and I look forward to being here later this afternoon to answer any questions.